In this video, I want to show you how you can build a customer-focused team culture by leading with curiosity, not control, using lessons from Ted Lasso, one of my all-time favorite shows. Now, after a great customer experience, I asked this employee why they gave such great service. And her response was perfect, and it was completely unexpected. She said, "I'm not sure what you mean. That's just how we do things here." Now, that simple statement, that should be the standard response for any employee in any company. But we all know that most companies don't come anywhere close to really incorporating a high level of service in their organization. And so today I am revealing what most business owners get completely wrong about how to build a strong customer-focused company culture. Now, I find that most companies approach leadership development and service culture like this. Right? They'll write out a mission statement, they'll post it on the wall, and then they hope every employee reads it. Then they often wonder why nothing changes. All right, that's not culture, that's wishful thinking. And I see this everywhere. See leaders that get frustrated, they're spending thousands of dollars on training programs. They're building elaborate systems, they're creating detailed manuals, but their teams still aren't living the culture that they want. Now, does that sound familiar? Now, there's a very famous scene in the first season of the popular show, Ted Lasso, where Ted, he's playing darts with Rupert Mannion, who is the main antagonist of the show, and he's the former owner of the AFC Richmond Football Club. So in this scene, Ted starts off by sharing how people have always underestimated him, and how much that really bothered him. Until one day he saw a quote from Walt Whitman that said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And he came to the realization that everyone who had given him a hard time over the years, not a single one of them was curious. They thought they knew everything. And so they judged everyone and they judged everything. And I find myself thinking back to this scene quite often because there are wonderful parallels to how many businesses and how many leaders approach their company culture problems with judgment. Now, I regularly hear things like, "My employees don't care. This generation doesn't have any work ethic. People just don't get it." But what if the problem isn't your people? What if it is your approach? Now, real culture integration, that happens through curiosity, not control. So let me show you the 5 stages of curious leadership. So stage number 1, be curious about your current company culture. Now, most leaders assume that they know what their culture is. I think that's a big mistake. Now, instead of just judging what you see, get curious about things like what employees are actually saying in the break rooms. How do they treat customers when you're not watching? Now, what stories do they tell about the company? Don't assume that you just know, right? Don't judge, just listen and learn. Step number 2, be curious about what great service actually looks like. Because trust me, customer experience excellence, it isn't something you're going to get right on day one. You've got to refine it through curiosity. Things like, what do our best employees do differently? Why do some of our customers rave while others complain? How can we make every interaction feel natural? The best companies, they don't just create service standards. They engineer their customer experience through curiosity. Stage number 3, be curious about your training approach. Now, here's where Ted Lasso's wisdom really hits home. Right? Now, most companies, they train once and they hope that it sticks. Now, to me, that's judgment thinking. We told them what to do, so they should just know. Now, the curious leader, on the other hand, tests, tweaks, they analyze, try different methods, right? Use stories and examples. Study what actually changes behavior in your employee development programs. Stage number 4, now be curious about reinforcement. Now, what worked in orientation might not work 6 months later. So stay curious. How do we keep service top of mind? Where can we reinforce excellence? How can we make recognition feel genuine? This is how you build a service-driven team culture that lasts. And then stage number 5, be curious about what really matters. Now, the best leaders, they ask, how do we know if culture is actually changing? How can we turn employees into culture champions? What would make this experience unforgettable for our team? All right, so let me tell you about a client who learned this the hard way. All right, they came to us, they were frustrated. Our service training isn't working, they said. They'd spent thousands on programs, they built systems, they created manuals, but said, we feel like we're doing everything and it's still not working. What are we missing? And so I had to stop them because I believe that 99% of leaders already know what good service is supposed to look like. They just don't know how to make it natural. They were stuck doing training work instead of the more important work of building a strong company culture that sticks. And so, what's culture building work? It's starting conversations. Conversations will create understanding. Understanding creates buy in, and buy in creates natural behavior. Most leaders will hide behind policies, procedures, and more training. Right? They think that they need better systems or fancier programs or maybe another consultant. But here's the secret: you don't need another manual, you don't need another workshop. What you need to do is you need to talk to your people. Because here's what happens now when you shift from judgment to curiosity: employees start to buy in naturally. Service becomes authentic. Excellence feels effortless. And then results compound. Now, ultimately, curiosity wins in leadership when leaders get curious. It changes everything. Service improves naturally. Team morale grows. Company culture becomes consistent. Leadership becomes more human. So, in the end, I think that Ted Lasso was right. The most controlling leader in the room doesn't always win. The most curious one does. Because when you stop trying to force culture and start being curious about it, something magical happens. Your team stops feeling managed and they start feeling heard. So here's my leadership challenge for you. Now, this week, instead of just telling your team what to do, ask them what they think. Be curious about their perspective. Be curious about their challenges. Be curious about their ideas. You might be surprised by what you discover. And if you need a little help building this customer focused culture, all right, we've created a number of tools that you can get down in the video description down below. You can get them there for free at my Stand store. And these are the same tools that companies around the world have used for years. And then you can find additional customer service resources and information about our training programs at www.snowassociates.com. I'm going to connect to another video over here that I think you'll find to be helpful. And if you like this video, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.